Hey everyone, welcome to another video. Now in this video, we are going to start looking at some of these operations with negative numbers now. And this is the topic of adding and subtracting positive integers. So in the previous video series where we looked at all positive integers, we did various types of additions, right? So we did, 3 plus 4 and a bunch of others like this. We're adding two positive numbers. So what we're actually going to start to look at now is introducing the idea of working with the negative part of our number line, where some of our answers may be negative or some of the numbers that we add may be negative as well. So everything that we're working through here is going to reduce back to the number line. This thing that we talked about ranging from the positives, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's just go to here for now. And we have -1, -2, -3, -4, and -5. So all of our operations with the number line so far, let's just recap some of the key ideas we talked about. Well, when we did our previous additions, for example, the 3 plus 4 example I looked at, let's do some smaller numbers. Let's do 3 plus 2. We said that this addition of adding makes a number bigger, right? So it's going to, for example, shift it from starting at 3. So I'm taking my number 3 and I'm adding 2 to it. So I'm going 1, 2 numbers more than it. That's the essence of adding. Our number gets bigger. So when I add two numbers, I'm going to get a bigger number as a result. And let's look at the direction that moves along our number line. Well, it goes in this direction. We started at 3 and we finished at 5. So when we add, our number gets bigger. We go to the right-hand side of our number line. So for adding, we go right to the right-hand side. This is just a way to visualize what we're actually doing here. Now let's look at when we did subtractions. So for example, if we did 2 minus 1, well, we started at 2, so we started at 2, and then we subtracted 1 from that. And the operation we did was a subtraction. We were trying to make the number lower. So we were saying, what is 1 less than 2? So whatever answer we get, our number's going to get smaller. So drawing this on my number line, I go from 2 and I'm going 1 number smaller than that. So if we consider the direction we go when we subtract, we are going to the left-hand side of the number line. So we have, for subtracting, we go left. Whoops. We go left. So that looks shocking. Let me fix that up. Okay. Let's do it down here. For subtracting, we go left. So these are the two ideas that we want to keep with us when we think of adding and subtracting, especially when we start getting these negative numbers. Now, I can give you a bunch of things to memorize, like a lot of textbooks do, where when we add a positive and a negative, we do this. When this, then this. But if we can just understand how our number line works and this idea that adding makes a number bigger, so we go to the right hand direction of our number line, and when we subtract, we make a number smaller, so we go to the left direction of our number line. These are two key ideas that are going to help us when our questions start to get a little bit trickier. And you'll see with some of these, we're going to be dealing with a lot more negatives. So we want just these two ideas. We don't want to memorize more than we need to, right? We have better things to do with our memory than just memorize rules for maths. It's better to understand it and then work from that. So these two ideas are the main ones we want to stick with. Now, I'm going to draw another number line, and we're going to use this number line to complete a series of questions. Let's put that down here. So my first one, and you're going to see me starting to use some negatives here. I want to find out what minus 2 plus 3 is. So let's bring this up actually. Cool. Okay, so I'll just draw another number line. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And going into the negatives, 2, 4, and minus 5. Beautiful. Now, where am I starting here? Well, I have a negative 2 here, and I'm trying to find what 3 more than that is. I'm adding 3 to that number. So I'm going to start at that number here, and I want to make this bigger by 3. So if my number, whenever I add, my number gets bigger. And we remember that this direction on our number line is in the bigger direction, right? As I go from, say, 0 up to 5, my number gets bigger. So this right-hand direction is the direction for adding, for making our number bigger. Now I'm adding 3 to this, so I'm going to move 1, 2, 3, whoops, what's happened there? 1, 2, 3 spots to the right. And that's all I have to do. Even though I'm using this new little negative and I'm exploring this side of my number line, the numbers are less than 0, the negative numbers, it's still the same way we add or subtract positive integers as well. So this, in essence, although the numbers look different, we're not really doing anything new here. And hopefully this is a relief to you because there's no more extra things we have to memorize. We're still talking about these concepts of adding, we move to the right of our number line, subtracting, we go to the left. So this thing equals 1. Cool. All right, let's try another example. So hopefully that all makes sense, but we end up at positive 1 here when we go 1, 2, 3 spots to the right when I add. Okay, cool. So let's try another one. I'm going to use this same number line, and we'll do another 2 questions. So I want to find now, let's go 5 minus 7. Cool. So I'm going to do the same thing. The only thing we're going to do here is we're going to first consider the operation. So just a refresher, an operation just means adding, subtracting, dividing, multiplying. Now I'm subtracting here, so we need to consider, what am I doing with my numbers? When I take 7 away from 5, is my number going to get bigger or is it going to get smaller? Well, the minus here is a hint. I'm subtracting it. I'm making it smaller. So I am likely going to be, or actually am going to be going in my left direction. I'm making a number smaller by doing the subtraction operation. So once again, I start at 5 and I want a number that is 7 less than 5. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 spots to my left here. That is the act of subtracting. I'm going to the left-hand side of my number line. And the number I wind up at is negative 2. So the main takeaway here, guys, is we're doing the same process here that we've been doing with all adding so far. So these questions, although they're different and we start using negative numbers, we start exploring this side of our number line, we're still approaching this in the same way. So we don't need to start worrying and stressing about the questions getting harder because they're the same concepts. We're using the same ideas here. Now let's do one more. And this one, I'm going to make a little trickier. I'm going to say, what's minus 3 minus 2? So I'm using way more negatives than I have up until now, but we can still approach it the same way. We can identify what number we're starting at and the number we're subtracting, and we consider the operation. So here we are minusing. So in all of these questions, we look at the number we start at, so where we start on our number line, and the operation we do. Let me actually just write that down, because this is what we want to kind of identify for all of these questions. We have where we start and the operation. And this number here is just kind of by how much we're adding or subtracting. So by how much. Cool. Beautiful. So let's look at this in a linear order. Let's look at this from left to right here. We're starting at negative 3. So where's that going to be on my number line? Well, it's going to be down here, right? So I found my starting point. I want to now look at the operation. Am I making my number bigger or am I making it smaller? And because I'm subtracting here, I'm making it smaller. That tells us the direction. So I'm going to be going likely in this direction because I'm making this number smaller. I'm going in the smaller direction. So I found out where I start, how far along, what operation I'm going, which direction I'm going in. Now I just want to consider by how much am I doing that? And that is my number 2 here. So I'm going 1 and 2 places to my left. Where do I end up at? I end up at minus 5 here. So even when I have all these extra subtractions and scary stuff, the process remains the same. We're looking at where we start, what the operation is, whether my number's getting bigger or smaller, and by how much is that number getting bigger or smaller. So even though the questions are getting trickier, we're using more negatives, we can still use the same tools we've been building up so far. And that is how we add and subtract positive integers. Thanks so much for watching, guys. I'll see you in the next video.